need you more. I need you more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another stream here from Knights of the Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, joining you tonight. A little tired, a little worn down. I don't usually have to go into the office, but I have had to go to the office the last 2 days, and believe it or not, I have not been to the office since before pandemic and stuff that often. So 2 days in a row. That's a lot for me. And so, my extra hour nap was actually because I ended up getting caught up at work later than expected. And I didn't want to have to like speed home and then just like immediately get onto the stream. So I got home about, I actually changed the time of the stream while I was at work. And then I came home and here we are. So we got some quality folks here tonight. We got Brutus in the house. We got Isaiah. We've got Frostjack, RPG Musings. We've got Kevin Kragan. We've got Topenvoski in here. Awesome. Now, of course, DM Dan is here as well. Howdy, DM Dan. I didn't really know what to talk about for tonight's stream. And, these type of topics and conversations, they don't usually get a lot of crowd. So that's okay. We don't have a whole lot that we necessarily have to cover. Normally we've been doing these first looks and they take multiple streams. So tonight's more about the philosophy and the idea behind RPG mechanics, tabletop role-playing game mechanics that are essentially tied to a character's personality. And what do we think about those? What are some of the strengths and weaknesses? What are some of the thoughts and ideas that we all have about these concepts? And I thought I would provide a little bit of context, a little bit of history, as I sort of work my way up to what, I think about the whole situation. Doesn't necessarily mean have to be what you think, but I'm happy to have the conversation with you all and see what you all think about, about what's going on. So definitions first, right? Let's talk about definitions. Oh, by the way, before we get started, hello and welcome. If you're new to the channel, please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell. If you're interested in checking out our Patreon, check us out, patreon.com/nightsoflastcall, where you can support the channel and get some cool perks for being a bonus of Patreon. So, a lot of fun stuff. No tip goals tonight. You guys crushed it this month. And so you all, between just continual general amazing support from Superchats and from tips, we more than reached our goals for the month. So no tip goal tonight. If you feel like throwing something out there, please feel free to. But otherwise, we're just going to talk tonight. We're just going to hang out. We're going to chill. Damien is watching it on their TV. John is happy to finally catch one live. Well, John, awesome. Great. Glad to have you here. Happy you're able to do that. What you missed? Nothing, Jason. We just started. So let us, Kevin wants to wonder if we're talking about prescriptive personality mechanics or descriptive personality mechanics. That's actually a really important distinction. So let's start off here by talking about what we're talking about. And that is the idea that a tabletop role-playing game has mechanics and rules in order to model or interact with, in a game-like fashion, the aspects of our tabletop role-playing game that we're playing. We have athletic skills that determine how far we can jump or how well we can grapple somebody. We have armor classes, which model how effective our armor is. It's something that is in our game, and we are expressing it through a mechanic. And when we express something through a mechanic, there are kind of two ways to do that. One is to simply have it be something that is written down on your sheet and doesn't really do anything. So let me give an example of this. Your character might have a gender. Your character might have a height. But for all intents and purposes, for the most part, these type of things are mechanical elements to your character, but they don't really mean a lot, right? They're really just describing your character. And I don't really consider those mechanical traits. Now, contrast something like height or weight with something like the concept, at least from a D&D or Pathfinder concept, size, small, medium, large. Now, suddenly, this not only is a description of your character's overall build and size and height and weight, but it also carries with it rules, mechanics. It allows you to interact with the game in a different way. So that is, what we mean of when we think about a mechanic and a mechanical element. Now, everything that we've been talking about has generally been a characteristic of the character's physical representation in the game. How far can you jump? How protected are you from with your armor? But we also understand that there are mental aspects of our character that we are modeling through mechanics and rules as well. We have perception checks. We have knowledge checks. We have charisma checks, all of which model how well our character perceives things, interacts with things, knows things. So we're modeling our character's mental acumen as well as their physical traits. So this then brings up the idea of a character's personality, a character's ethics, their morals, a character's goals, a character's drives. And historically, D&D has been sort of, obviously the poster child. And when people think about character personalities and D&D, they think about alignment. That is usually where the go-to thought process is for D&D, with alignment. But what's really interesting about Dungeons and Dragons in alignment is sort of the roller coaster ride that alignment has taken over the last 50 years in terms of its mechanical weight and effect on the game. And Dungeons and Dragons, let's be clear, has never been a game that is what we would describe as a very heavily narrative style game. But there has always been this idea of alignment in D&D. And there's a lot of people who think that it's silly or stupid. There are some people who think the idea of having character personality traits is fine, but that alignment is a very clumsy, kludgy way to do it. And I probably fall into that group myself. But let's talk about where alignment came from and where alignment originally started. So where alignment really started, obviously, was back in the original game of Dungeons and Dragons. And this idea coming from the sword and sorcery novels, the, Michael Moorcock Eldritch novels, this idea of the cosmic forces of law and chaos. In fact, in original D&D, you could only have an alignment of lawful, neutral, or chaos. There was no evil, there was no good. Moral bearing did not really enter into the alignment. There was sort of an assumption that if you were lawful, you looked out for the common good of other people. And if you were chaotic, you were selfish and self-interested and you only cared about yourself. So that was the original alignment spectrum. And obviously that evolved as we went into first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons into the 2-axis, 9-grid, chaotic evil, lawful evil, neutral good, true neutral evil, lawful good, lawful neutral, lawful evil sort of spectrum that we are sort of used to and aware of today. And most people understood that alignment was this idea because D&D had this problem, right? Which was that it was trying to solve with alignment. The problem with D&D is, and by the way, you're having this problem as well today, even if you don't realize what it is. At a fundamental level, your characters are going around killing people and taking their stuff. You're murderers, you're, mercenaries, you're pirates, you're privateers, you're horrible people. Even if these people who are committing these acts are arguably your foes, it's still pretty brutal if you think about the way that most adventuring parties, certainly over the last 50 years, but even in modern times, the way that people treat foes and monsters in D&D. It's kind of shoot first, ask questions later. No one's brought in no one gets their day in court. No one gets no one gets brought to the tribunal. There's no justice, right? It's justice at the end of a sword. It's murder. I mean, essentially, more or less. And oftentimes the party of adventurers are the aggressors. I mean, it's one thing if goblins are attacking a town, actively trying to kill people, and then you end up killing them in the skirmish that follows. That's I wouldn't say that's good, but it's certainly not evil. But even if those goblins are not necessarily nice, very nice goblins, if you're going into their home, into their lair, and you're kicking in the door and you're killing them and you're taking all their stuff and leaving with it, it begs into mind certain moral quandaries, like, what are we doing here? And D&D sort of originally solved this issue by saying, yeah, but those are the bad guys, okay? They're evil. And killing them is not only not an evil thing, but it's actually a good thing. That allowing an evil creature to live is almost a sin. That these creatures are, irredeemable. They are evil incarnate. It is biological essentialism, essentially, that these creatures are inherently evil. Now, I understand that in 2020, we look at that and we think of this as being this horribly racist or problematic statement. And certainly taking that concept and applying it to anything resembling real life is certainly problematic. But you also have to understand that it does solve a problem, because if you don't assume that these creatures are evil, that they are just ordinary creatures living their lives, then your characters are horrible human beings or elf beings or plant beings or whatever you are, dog people, because you are just stacking up a body count and you're killing people without any sort of due process. You're killing them without giving them any of the rights that any other beings or creatures would be given. And you're using the defense of, but they're evil, they're the bad guys. But you're not working or living in a world where evil is absolute. right? And that's the idea behind the original D&D. And if you look at it, it's still present today. It's present in things like Divine Lance. It's present in things like Detect Alignment. Evil, we understand that in the modern day sense, that very few people ever think that they're the bad guy, right? People that we would ascribe to as being evil very rarely ever think that they are an evil person. They think in their mind that they are doing the right thing, the best thing, the good thing, right? It's dramatic, it's problematic, it's real life, it's messy, it's kind of gross. If you look at a show like, I don't know, Breaking Bad or something, at a certain point, Walter White he didn't think he was the bad guy. I mean, certainly he probably didn't think he was always the good guy, but he didn't think he was an evil man. He thought he was just doing what he had to do, what he needed to do for his family, for his people, for himself, whatever the case may be. Very few people are going to say that they are evil. So essentially, there's shades of gray in every situation. Now, that could be very compelling as a gameplay mechanic. It could be very compelling as a novel. It could be very compelling as a TV show. It might even be very, very compelling for your tabletop role-playing game. But most people who sit down to play a game of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or D&D or Pathfinder don't want to spend the night trying to determine, charges of, how are we going to arrest these people and bring them into court and try them for banditry and, and is it right? And is it morally right? Do we have to get a permission from someone? Do we have to get a legal writ? Do we have to seek the town's council's permission before we engage against these, people that are our foes? Like, are there rules of war here? Does the Geneva Convention apply? Most people just kind of want to kick ass and take names. Most people want to play D&D like they play a video game. And when you sit down to play your favorite MMO or video game or JRPGs, what do? You stack up the bodies. You just kill everything in vast and endless droves. And because it's fun. So I think personally that back in the day, D&D and its creators were actually trying to solve a problem. They weren't trying to be racist or problematic. They were simply trying to come up with a framework that would allow you to essentially kick ass and be a good guy too. That it was basically designed because it's sort of like, look, this game is supposed to be fun. This game is supposed to be, it's not supposed to be this welling up moral dilemma. It is supposed to be like, look, what we really want to do is kick in the door, kill some goblins, kill some orcs, take their treasure, maybe, roll some vats of flaming oil down into their lair and set them on fire, right? We want to commit war crimes, essentially, against these people. But we don't want to feel bad about it, and we certainly don't want the DM calling us out about it. And so Gary Gygax and the powers that be, when they originally created Advanced Dungeons & Dragons and D&D, said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that all the monsters out in the wild, goblins and orcs and all that, they are team evil with a capital E. Okay? In fact, they are so evil that it's not a matter of subjective evil, right? Like, again, nobody thinks that they're the bad guy. No. In our world, good with a capital G and evil with a capital E, these are real fundamental forces. The same way that water and fire are fundamental elements of our game, of our world. The way that you could measure something's weight or that you could measure something's distance or length. You could measure something's evil. You could measure something's good. And thus spells like detect evil or detect good. Nowadays, we would call it detect alignment. Or if we're using Pathfinder 2 as an example, you have spells like Divine Lance, which specifically only do damage to creatures that are, assuming you're good, evil. Now, Jason brings up a great point here. I'm going to highlight. I'm sorry if I've missed some of the chats. But didn't they inherit that idea from Tolkien? Jason, they did. They did. I mean, in Tolkien's mythos, now they don't have the huge variety of creatures that they had, of course, in D&D game, but the base idea in Tolkien's mythos is that orcs as a race were a ruined and corrupted race, and that killing them was a mercy. And that, that it was, you were actually doing them almost like a favor by killing them. And there was to be no moral dilemma about slaughtering these creatures. Now, again, I get it. That same mentality was used during things like, the Spanish, conquistadora of the Americas, and in many other circumstances throughout history, where people, were not treated as real, creatures were not treated as real human beings, so that people wouldn't feel bad about killing them and taking all their stuff, which is basically what has happened a lot of times in history. And D&D, whether you want to admit it or not, has this fundamental problem that is a lot of times what you and your group of merry adventurers are doing. So alignment and this idea of absolute alignment, the idea that no one in D&D thinks they're good when they're evil, because you could literally, cast an alignment spell on yourself. Like you could shoot yourself with a divine lance and go, oh, I am evil, right? Like evil and good in these worlds are real concepts. In fact, they were so real in first edition D&D that each alignment had their own language. It was like literally team evil and team good. In the sense that like it was they had their own secret handshakes, because that was the squad that you were on. That was the team that you were on. So like, I get why people came to this idea that like alignment was problematic in the modern sense. Now, from a drama perspective, if we look at Tolkien, I enjoy Tolkien. I've read all of his works. Maybe I haven't read like all of like Beren and Luthien or something like that, but I've read everything, and it's fun. It's an enjoyable piece of work of fiction for me. But right, it lacks dimensionality. Right, Sauron is the bad guy. The orcs are the bad guys. The good guys are the good guys. In fact, the only character that's really kind of interesting from a certain point of view is Boromir. Because Boromir is like trying to do the right thing, but he's tempted by the power of the ring, and he falls to its thing, and he tries to redeem himself, but, obviously gets killed. Spoiler alert. And so, like, it's a problem because, these characters they lack shades of gray. They're pretty black and white. They're just good because I'm good and I'm always good and I'm always going to do the right thing and don't worry about it and it's easy. Okay. Now, to be fair, again, there are a lot of people who enjoy the simplicity of that story. In fact, one of the things about it is that I would say is Lord of the Rings is more about what the characters are doing rather than what the characters are going to go through. And that's an important takeaway, because I think that's the way a lot of people play Dungeons and Dragons. They're not really that concerned about their characters or what their characters are going through. They're concerned about what their character is going to do. What are you going to accomplish? What did we get done today? It's not about like, how do I feel, or how do I feel about what happened today? It's all about getting things done. Even the base reward system for most D&D and Pathfinder games is experience points, which you either gain from defeating encounters or by getting to a certain checkpoint, milestone or whatever in the adventure, which is another way of just saying you're making progress towards beating the thing, resolving the issue, right? It's all about what you're doing, not about why you're doing it or how do you feel about it. So we don't really have reward mechanics to address that. But it's interesting because, like I said before, D&D is a little bit like a sort of a parabola, in that when the game first started out, alignment actually mattered a lot more, I think, than most people realize. Jason says, what about Saruman? Well, Saruman was good, and then Saruman became evil. I mean, that's kind of the generic course of him. People can change. But let's take a look at something here real quick. I'm going to switch. Hopefully this doesn't destroy everything. Hey, oh, well, it sort of destroyed it. Small window. Let me try changing this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So this is the first edition Dungeons and Dragons DMG, Dungeon Master Guide. And what's interesting about this is in original Dungeons and Dragons, let's go take a look at what it has to say about alignment. So here we have it explaining all about alignment, the way that a creature thinks, the way that a creature reasons, the way that a creature is being motivated or explained. And we can see the divisions here between law and chaos, right? All the things that we would normally expect to see. But what's interesting about this is graphing alignment. Okay. Now this is first edition D&D. This came out in 1979. So again, remember, like I said, alignment kind of went through this weird parabola. It says it is of the utmost importance to track a player character's behavior with respect to their professed alignment. Actions do speak far more eloquently than professions, and each activity of a player character should reflect his or her alignment. If a professed lawful evil character is consistently seeking to be helpful and respecting lesser creatures, he or she is certainly trending towards good. While if he or she ignores regulations and consistent behavior, the trend is towards chaotic alignment. See the Player's Handbook Appendix 3 Character Alignment Graph. I actually used that today in the thumbnail. The idea was that a GM would have a graph, a picture, if you will, of these alignment charts. And you would use these to sort of track, from session to session, what a character's alignment was. You would say, oh, okay, Shadram kind of was pretty quick there to lie to the officials about what really happened. I'm going to make a note that Shadram's character is starting to move away from neutral and getting closer and closer to chaotic. Their alignment is written as neutral, neutral good, but it feels like they're starting to move towards chaotic good. And the idea was that you had literally had a graph, a chart. Again, the thumbnail for today's stream was that this character, you might start to drift and change over them. And it talks about here about it might be possible for a character to shift, to make small shifts around their alignment, making only small shifts from time to time. But it does say any major action which is out of alignment will cause a major shift to the alignment, which is directly in line with the action that was caused. So, in other words, if you go out and do something completely out of pocket, you are going to immediately be essentially shifted into a different alignment. Just realized I covered up the chat window here. My bad. But I don't know what that is. So, all right. Well, we're gonna have to live with that. Sorry about that. But what's interesting about this is right here. So, right, all of this is normal. This is the stuff that we're used to. But check this out. If you decide that a character's alignment has changed, in other words, they have done something, if you're neutral good and Shadram is just being a little bit too chaotic, it becomes chaotic good, then after the session, the GM will inform you that your character has changed alignment. Notice what it says here. Immediately upon alignment change actually occurring, the character concerned will lose 1 level of experience. You'll lose a level. You will drop your experience points to take him or her to the very beginning of the next lower level, losing all hit dice, hit points, and all abilities which accrued from that lost level. If the alignment change is involuntary, such as from powerful magic or a curse, then you can regain your losses if you return to your formal alignment and making atonement through a cleric. However, characters who knowingly or unknowingly change alignment through forethought or actions permanently lose the experience points and levels due to disfavor. Also, you have a hard problem with your alignment language as well. So your character could literally lose a level if you didn't play your alignment well. Yeah, Maggie says, trying to incentivize people to their alignment or get punished. Yeah, basically. That is basically what it comes down to. So this was very much obviously a stick method, right? In terms of a stick and a carrot. A character would be punished. And the idea being that this wasn't just a description of the way that you should play your character. It was a onus on the player to play their player character appropriately. And this is something that I think gets really into this idea of separating the player character from the player. I think a lot of people think of their characters like some sort of, mech suit, like some sort of super powerful mech suit. And it's them, the actual person, the player, Derek, who's basically hopping into their character, and they've got all the controls and they can do whatever they want, and they are completely in control, and they can do whatever they want to, because my character, my PC, isn't a real person. They're just an avatar that I possess and go run around in this imaginary world. I need ways to interact with that world, and that's where mechanics come in, like athletics checks and armor classes and attack rolls. But there's this other idea, which is to say that your player character is distinct. It's different from who you are and from the way that you want to play the game. The player character, your PC, has this personality. They have this alignment. They have these morals, motivations, goals, or drives. And those might be different from what I, the player, want. Now, we can write these things down on our character sheet. So I mentioned before about a parabola. I should note by the time you got to second edition D&D, and certainly by the time you got to third edition D&D, this idea of losing a level of experience because you changed your alignment was completely gone. Fourth edition D&D, no mention of it whatsoever. Strangely enough, though, I mentioned the parabola. Fifth edition D&D brought back for the first time mechanics around your character's personality. And I've said this several times before on the stream, but I was shocked, I say, because I played some fifth edition in the beginning of when it came out, and then I didn't play it for a long time. And when 1D&D was being announced, they were talking in chat, and we were having a stream, and I was talking with patrons, and I was like of the mind that, oh, okay, well, fifth edition was kind of a cool. No wonder people like fifth edition. People today are much more interested in character arcs and character drama and characters having emotional growth, societal growth, civil growth, right? They're much more interested in their characters, what makes their character tick. And I thought, oh, no wonder fifth edition is doing so well. It has, for the first time in a D&D game, not a stick about personality, but a carrot. And that was in the form of ideals, flaws, bonds, which were these personality traits about your character, which when played and used in the game had a mechanical effect of awarding your character inspiration, which meant that your character. So in other words, as written in the book, a fifth edition D&D character who is role played well, that is consistently playing to their character's flaws, ideals, and bonds, will be more successful than a character who is role played poorly. Because the character that is being role played well should be receiving near constant inspiration, which they will use to generate better dice rolls, whereas the character that is not role playing will not receive that inspiration and will struggle. And then this is when I was like, that is we haven't seen that since 1979. We haven't seen that since first edition D&D, where, they punished you for being, they punished you for being a little bit too off of your alignment. But here they gave you a carrot. They gave you an incentive. They said, hey, you don't have to act that way, but if you do, we're going to give you a cookie. And then I learned from my patrons, from the D&D chat, that nobody plays with that. That most people leave it blank, or they ignore it, or GMs always forget to award it, or DMs always forget to award it. It blew my mind, because I thought it was so crazy to me, because so many people were out there playing 5th edition D&D, and they were really focusing on the characters' personalities. They were really focusing on the characters' unique quirks and traits and, all this stuff. And for the first time, D&D had mechanics that supported this, and the people weren't using it. They weren't using it. It blew my mind. So D&D has kind of come, in a sense, it's come back to this idea of alignment, should matter mechanically, and yet nowadays people ignore it, and it really made me, kind of question or think about or be puzzled by this idea of, should tabletop role-playing games have personality mechanics? And when I say should, what I mean is, this is more of a fundamental philosophical question, because I can answer the question for me. I can say, yes, I have more fun playing a game that requires my character to play in a way that is different from the way that I, Derek, would probably act in that same situation. If you were to, if I was beaming my direct consciousness into this virtual avatar inside of the D&D or the Pathfinder world, what would I do? What would I want? How would I react to situations? Would be very different from the way that my character would act. So that's fine. That's what I like. I like that situation. I like having to grapple with these personality traits that are different from me, and I like for the mechanics to interact with them. That's not really what I was asking about today. What I'm asking about is more of a philosophical question, which is, is it still role-playing? Does it still count if you're getting rewarded for it? Does it still count if the only reason you're doing it is to avoid a punishment? So let me give kind of a quick example. It's kind of a shitty example, but I'll give one anyways. I, in high school, was, always kind of trying to be a pain in the ass. And as part of my requirement to for National Honor Society, I had to go do some volunteer work. And I was out there building a house, helping with Habitat for Humanity. And there was someone who I've had spates with time and time again. And I was basically saying, like, okay, well, I'm here, whatever, like that. And the person basically tried to imply that me being there didn't really count, because the only reason I was there was because I had to do it. I needed a certain number of volunteer hours for my National Honor Society. And they weren't wrong. I would not have been there otherwise. But I tried to point, being kind of contrarian, I tried to point out, I said, well, are you really enjoying yourself? Are you doing, and they were basically like, oh, I love doing this. I get such a good feeling out of this. I get such a positive feedback from this, and, all this other stuff. And I said, so it sounds like you're doing this for selfish reasons. It sounds like you're doing this for you. not for them, right? And I was mostly trying to just give them shit because of they were giving me shit. And so it kind of, it's something that I've always thought about, which is like, were any of us there truly being noble? Were any of us there truly being selfless, right? Because now at the end of the day, right, someone's getting a home. Like the end result, the end goal, right, is what matters. But does my contribution matter less because I'm only doing it because I, quote, had to?
Kragan tipped $10. The roleplay aspect is the part of putting yourself in the mindset of a character that isn't you, reward or not. But without reward or punishment, most people won't do it. Without it, you're just playing a board game.
Kragan, thank you for the tip. I kind of agree with what you're saying. I will get into it, but I definitely agree with you that there's this weird interaction point, right? Where like if a character does something, but they're doing it like if a character, let me give you a good, okay. Like let's give another example. Pathfinder 2. Pathfinder 2 says that if a character does something heroic, you should give them a hero point to reward them for being heroic. But if someone is being rewarded for being heroic, does that make it not heroic? Or are they only doing it because they're going to get a prize? Right? Like, does it demean, does it lessen the value of heroism in your campaign? I'll use another example. And this one actually came up recently. You may be familiar with Northern Reaches, which is Knights of Last Call last year ran a mega campaign with over, I think, 50 or 60 or 70 players. And we had, 15, 20 GMs all running a bunch of games. And at some point during the course of then everybody's playing, it's basically like an MMO, but PF2, but not Pathfinder Society, because it was a real live persistent world. Like time passed. If you killed the dragon of the Red Mountain, the dragon of the Red Mountain was dead. And it's not like you could just go, oh, I'll go kill him too. I'll go drop that raid boss and get his sick loot. No, like there was one of them and they were dead. Anyways, at some point, a power started to grow with these diabolic agents of Asmodeus who appeared and offered player characters power in exchange for, essentially for part of their soul. And in game terms, by the way, in our game, everyone got 3 lives. There was no resurrection or raised dead, but you got 3 lives. And these contract devils would take 2 of your 3 lives, and in exchange, they would give you free archetypes. So they were giving you power for being evil. And so many people took up this offer that we started this sort of like cult of Asmodeus and evil power. And a couple of people were like, hey, like, what's the reward for being good? Shouldn't there be like a bonus that we get for being good? And my co-overlord and I, Aaron, were basically like, no, that's why being good is tough. If we were giving you as the reason why people turn to evil is because of the power and the ease and the temptation to go get that power, if just but for doing something horrible or not caring about somebody else. If we started rewarding you for being good, it would sort of defeat the purpose of being good, right? Like the exact reason why it is tough, why it sucks to be good, is because you don't get anything for it. You don't get shit.
GM Scott tipped $25.
Hey!
Just got here. This sounds like a great topic. Vin versus Derek. 2 GMs enter, 1 GM leaves.
It'd be nice. I got to admit, I came up with this topic kind of last minute, but it would have been nice to have another person on here today that disagreed with me. So hopefully the chat can provide some fire back. But thank you, GM Scott, for that tip. Appreciate it. I saw someone had a really good point, which was, Jason said, are firefighters less heroic because they get paid? It's a great question. Or better yet, Jason, let me ask you, let's do a different question. Who's more heroic, Jason? the paid firefighter, the professional firefighter, or the volunteer fire department, who potentially is not as trained because it's not their full-time job, and potentially doesn't make any money or gets paid very little just for when they show up for training and events. Are they more heroic? But at the end of the day, these are both people who are risking their lives to save other human beings, property, civilization, value, whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does the intent matter? And so, one of the things that I kind of struggle with is when you reward somebody for playing their personality, does that take away from the value of doing it, or does it add to it? Because ultimately what Kragan said in their tip certainly resonates with me. And I'm going to read it again because I want to make sure I get it right. Kragan said, the roleplay aspect is the part of putting yourself in the mindset of a character that is not you. Reward or not. Which is true. But without reward or some sort of punishment, stick and carrot, most people just won't do that. Or they'll only do it when it's convenient. Kragan didn't say this, but I'm adding, they'll only do it when it's convenient. My character is extremely selfless. They will never accept payment. But except when I really need that new rune because my weapon kind of sucks and I really need a better weapon, right? Like it's like, but there's no bonus, there's no penalty, there's no flaw. The game doesn't have any way to reward or punish that character for playing their character totally and completely inconsistently. They could play their PC however they want. They could be selfish today, they could be selfless tomorrow, they could be a crybaby today, they could be stoic tomorrow, right? It doesn't matter. The game rules, Pathfinder 2, D&D or whatever, don't care how you play your character. It doesn't matter. Now, Kragan says, without this, you're just playing a board game. Now, on that part, we agree. For me, what distinguishes a board game from a TTRPG is intent. My character's intent. When I play a board game, Derek is trying to win. That is the only goal. When I'm playing a TTRPG, there is this secondary concept of what does my PC want? And is that different or distinct from what I want? And to be honest with you, it's much more interesting when it is different, because for me, the fun of a role-playing game is actually the role-playing game. And I don't mean role-playing as FBT, because the problem is if you play your character as being very, as a crybaby and who's always whining and complaining, that's fine. But understand that if it doesn't make a difference, if it doesn't change what's happening in the game, then you're just adding flavor. You're just adding fun to it. You could do that same thing in, say, World of Warcraft, right? Me role-playing my character in a D&D game where I just go, hey, I'm just, I'm always complaining and, whining and crybaby. Me doing that in a D&D game is the same as me doing that in, or Pathfinder 2 is the same as me doing that in WoW, in, text or voice chat. It's the same as me doing it in a game of Diablo. I'm playing my character. I'm giving my character this personality. But the game mechanics of World of Warcraft, the game mechanics of Diablo, they don't care how I'm playing my character or why I'm playing my character or what my character is motivated about. That's not what those games are about. That game's about, well, what can my character do? What can they accomplish? What did they get done? And so it doesn't matter. Well, Pathfinder 2 and D&D and TTRPGs that don't care about personality are in some ways the same way. Just like a board game, can I play D&D without any sort of personality? Can I play D&D without any sort of goal or motivation? Of course I can. I just have to, My character could be a blank slate. It's like, well, what's your character's goal? Beat the adventure. And if that sounds crazy to you, there are people on this channel like Bob, who, if you ask them what their character's goal was in, their first year or two of playing D&D with me, it was to get to the end, to beat the game. Now, Lance said it best: get stronger, level up. And Kragan is also, again, correct. That's not bad if that's what everyone playing wants to do. I completely agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with people playing D&D with minimal role playing, minimal, fluffy bullshit time, just rolling dice, overcoming obstacles, playing some miniature combat with a little bit of flavor sprinkled on top of it. That's fine. What I'm asking is, win the game. What I'm asking is, when you do add those mechanics, but that's the framework that we have. We have a framework like D&D and Pathfinder, which does not care. It is completely agnostic to what your character is doing and what your character cares about. Now, let us contrast that with a game like, we'll say, Avatar Legends. Okay? So here's Avatar Legends. And in Avatar Legends, here is one of the classes. They are called the Icon. The Icon comes from an ancient tradition and inherits some serious standards to live up to. Play the Icon if you want to be torn between your heart and your duty. This character class comes equipped with this personality drama dilemma, and they are going to be torn between their role, what are the traditions that they are expected to live up to, versus their desire for freedom and expression. And by the way, this isn't just make believe. The entire game revolves around these concepts of playing to your passion and playing to your your character's principles. I don't know if I have a character sheet in these examples, but let's see if we do have a character sheet. We do not. Cool. Thank you, Avatar. But like, on your character sheet in a game of Avatar Legends, your character, you don't just have like hit points, and this is the part where I hate all things related to they don't even give you printouts. It's weird. Crazy. All right. Well, anyways, I thought there was going to be character sheets. But like, they don't even give you the whole game is about struggling with your character's desire and torn between these two things. Now, it basically comes in. PDF struggles are real. I've gone off on these rants before. I can't stand PDFs. I think they're the worst things ever. I think they're horrible. They're designed very badly, and they're stupid. Okay. Well, it turns out I have the core. They are in a different PDF. All right. Okay. I just wanted to, just for people who are not as familiar. Sorry. I just want to make sure. So this, for example, we were saying the Icon, right? That was the character class that we were talking about. So here's our Icon. Oh, no. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. So our character sheet, the way that we would normally track hit points and all this other stuff, our character sheet has ways for us to track our character's balance as they shift between their role and their responsibility of versus their freedom and their ability to do whatever they want. And you'll see that there's like numbers associated with these things. We're at +3 roll and -3 freedom, or we're at -2 roll and +2 freedom, right? So like, Shadram, take care. Enjoy your meeting. Thanks for stopping by today. And this is a game that cares a great deal about these ideas and these mechanics. And, these are part of it. Now, this is what I was trying to get to today. Could you play a Pathfinder 2 character? London, that's a whole can of it. I don't even want to open that up, London, but that I originally London, that's actually what I was going to talk about today. About how I think it's horrible. I don't know why I think that is horrible. By the way, for people who don't know, Avatar Legends, the role-playing game, uses Powered by the Apocalypse. It was the biggest tabletop role-playing game Kickstarter of all time. It was the number 3 all-time just game on Kickstarter. The only thing that did higher than this, I think, was like Kingdom Death Monster and version 2 or version 1.5 and Frosthaven, the follow-up to Gloomhaven. And it's Powered by the Apocalypse, and it got $9 million. It did super well. But how many people bought this game thinking it was going to be D&D? And now you can buy Avatar at Target. Right next to the D&D basic box set is the Avatar Legend starting pack. And I just feel like that's almost being unfair, because I can just imagine how many people are going to buy this game thinking that it's just going to be D&D with Avatar, and it's just so different, and it's just so not. And it almost seems like it's counter-purposed. Okay, I'm sorry.
Good, I can't maneuver.
Sorry.
Stay on target.
We're too close.
Stay on target.
So, again, we've got this game, Avatar, and we've got this character, the Icon, and they are set up to struggle between their role and their freedom. And you can see here on the right, by the way, all the character playbooks get these. There are 5 conditions that your character can acquire in a game of Avatar. You can become afraid, angry, guilty, insecure, or troubled. You'll see that these have mechanical effects. A character who is afraid gets a penalty to intimidating someone or calling someone out on their behavior, because they're afraid. They're not going to stand up to anybody. A character who is insecure is going to find it difficult to trick or deceive people, because they're not very convincing. They're very insecure. Now, these conditions are mechanical effects and they are personality effects. In fact, one of the ways that you can clear, if you acquire the afraid condition, like the angry condition, one of the ways in the game mechanically that you can get rid of this angry condition, which, by the way, is giving you a mechanical penalty to actions in the game, is to blow up at somebody, to let your anger out, to destroy something that is valuable or precious, to break something that you didn't mean to break, to snap off at someone that you didn't need to snap off at. It's a way of connecting the fiction and the narrative. But going back to our Icon, could we make a Pathfinder 2 character? Now, this character in Avatar is going to play the game, and they are going to constantly be struggling between the balance between role and freedom. It's going to come up a lot. The mechanics are going to reference it. Could you make this character in Pathfinder 2? Could you have a character in Pathfinder 2 who was the heir of an ancient tradition, and the expectation is that your character will follow in the footsteps of your mother, just like her mother before her, and her mother and her mother, and all your grandmothers going back into antiquity, and you are going to be the next one to bear the burden of the iron sword of Greywood, and you've got this role weighing on your shoulders, but you don't want to do that. All you want to do is have fun with your friends. Could you do that in Pathfinder 2? Yes, you could do that in a game of Monopoly, I suppose, if you really wanted to. But there's no mechanics that support that. There's nothing that ties into the way that you're going to be playing your character. That character is going to be playing this being torn between role and freedom. And they're going to be doing it on their own. There's going to be no game support to them. And here's the thing. Whether your character resolves their issue or not, it won't make a difference. What I want to know is, which of those two circumstances, aka the Icon, who is struggling between role and freedom, or the Pathfinder 2, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of fighter or ranger or crusader who is struggling between their role and their freedom. Because the character who's playing this character in Avatar, in a sense, they are doing it because that's what the game is telling them to do. Whereas in Pathfinder 2, you are doing it, but you're doing it not because it's some mechanical advantage, not because it's some mechanical penalty. You're doing it because it's what you feel is right to do. Does that make it like more pure? I don't know. I don't know that it does. I don't know. I certainly agree with what Kragan says, where in a vacuum, more people are actually going to play their personality of role versus freedom, right? When there's mechanics for it. You know, if you give them a generic game like Pathfinder 2 or D&D, most of the time they're just going to ignore it. Or they're only going to pay attention to it when it's convenient to them. And the moment it becomes inconvenient to them, they're going to kind of ignore it and just go back to doing whatever they want to do. Yes, Kragan says with no mechanics, it's FBT. That is kind of how I feel. It's descriptive. It's just fluff. It's just description. It's just meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. But does doing it only because you have to, does that cheapen it somehow? So we've got a couple questions in chat I want to answer. One, Isaiah saying, what is FBT? FBT, Isaiah, is fluffy bullshit time. It's one of the slogans around here from Knights of Last Call. Fluffy bullshit time is what we at the Knights of Last Call and the Knights of Last Call community refer to when a character in a role-playing game is just describing things. It doesn't really make a difference in the mechanics of the game. It's just you sort of making things fun and descriptive and having a lot of fluff. A good example of this, Isaiah, if you're familiar with like a game like Magic the Gathering, is like flavor text, which is at the bottom of the Magic the Gathering card. It doesn't have any impact on the game whatsoever. It's just flavor. It doesn't affect anything about the cost or the mechanics or the way the game operates. It's just there to add a little bit of fun and flavor. Arguably, you could say the art of a Magic the Gathering card is also fluffy bullshit time. It doesn't have any impact on the mechanic. So for example, if we were playing Pathfinder 2 and I was playing my character who is struggling and torn between their role and their freedom, that is almost by definition fluffy bullshit time, because none of that conflict, none of that decision, none of that whatever is going to affect my next attack roll. It's not going to affect my next diplomacy check. It's not going to affect my next downtime action. It's just something there to sort of sprinkle on top. Whereas if we were playing Avatar Legends and I was playing with you and your character was highly shifted over towards freedom, that is going to have a mechanical impact to how you play the game. Now, I should note, by the way, that role-playing games require skill. And I don't just mean being badass at combat and knowing how to stack feats to get a sick bonus to attack roll. What I mean is, in a game of Avatar Legend, if my character became angry, and we check this box here, mechanically, we understand what's going to happen. Our character is going to have a -2 penalty to guide and comfort and to assess a situation. Like, that is the mechanical impact to being angry. But, where is this thing? Hey, there it is. It's way over the hell over here. Chat is back. We understand that is what angry means inside of the game mechanics. It gives us a -2 penalty to the guide and comfort action, and it gives us a -2 penalty to the assess a situation action. But there is nothing, even in Avatar Legends, that requires that if my character has the angry condition checked, that they have to role play themselves. And by that, I mean like describe themselves as being angry, right? Like, for example, Pathfinder 2, If your character becomes frightened, maybe because of magic, or maybe because a person demoralized them without magic, your character becomes frightened too. But you don't have to play your character like they're frightened. You don't have to play your character like they are frightened at all. They could do the most heroic, courageous, and brave thing next. There is no requirement that it's going to force you to play your character a certain way. And you have a penalty to your actions because your character is afraid. Same thing is true in a game like Avatar. Just because your character is angry doesn't mean you have to play your character like they're angry. Technically, you do not have to. That is not a rule in the game. But in my personal opinion, playing my character, being suggested or forced to play my character as angry because the angry condition got checked, that for me is the fun of the role-playing game, because I myself am not an angry person. I myself am not a guilty or troubled person. Certainly me playing at the table, I'm not feeling these things. I'm having fun with my buddies. I'm drinking a beer, I'm having a great time. What makes the game fun is something happens to my character. An event occurs, a move is made, an NPC does something, and suddenly my character, the game rules, the game mechanics decide that my character is now angry. And now there is a new challenge for me in this game. It's not, can I beat these monsters to 0 hit points? It's not, can I disarm this trap? The new challenge of the game is play your character like they're angry. Make decisions in line with being angry. That to me is a role-playing game. I'm role-playing, and the game is that actual act of playing the role. That to me is like true role-playing. And that is what I think is so much fun. Now, could I do that in a game like Pathfinder 2? I could. It's role-playing. But I don't think it's a role-playing game. It's role-playing, but I don't think it's a role-playing game. We're just adding it on top of a different game, right? Pathfinder 2 is a game down here. D&D is a game down here. And then the role-playing is sitting on top of it. It's like oil and water, okay? A role-playing game, one thing, the two things are interlinked. They're mixed. You can't have one without the other. But does that cheapen it? Does that cheapen it? Does it mean less if the only reason I'm playing my character as angry in this game of Avatar Legends is because I have the angry condition checked? Right? I don't know. I think no, but maybe yes. Maybe it does mean more if you just play your character the way that you think. I don't know. This was the thought process that I was going through today when I made this thumbnail. When I made this chat. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm going to go try to catch up with some of the chat. I know I've been kind of ranting today. Ooh, I was tired today, people. I was tired. Again, I got to tell, I don't have a hat on, so tip the headphones. To all you people, I have been blessed to be able to work from home, and just going into the office a few days in a row and then getting home and trying to take care of my other responsibilities, get on these streams. Oh boy, it is tough. So for all you people out there who are still going into the office, 5 days a week, again, I tip my hat to you. All right, I'm just catching up here. For starters, Jason says this reminds them of Pendragon, and I agree. It is a lot like Pendragon. In fact, I would argue, Jason, that Pendragon is more extreme, because Pendragon will literally, I think, essentially at a certain point in time, kind of take over your character and force you to play a certain way, or the GM will even sort of control certain aspects of your character, because it's almost like the PC is a third party, or at least a second party to the player, right? The player and the PC are very much kind of independent objects, which I kind of like. Lollipop says, I love these Avatar mechanics. Yeah, I'd love to do more talk about Avatar. It's a really fun game. Jason again says, honestly, I would hate to play with someone that plays their character in PF2. Well, Jason, we didn't get into this, but I think that's a good point that Jason makes. You see, if we're playing a game of Avatar and my character, we're going to stop back over here. If we're playing a game of Avatar and my character has the angry condition marked, okay? My character has the angry condition marked. Well, we can see here, let me find it really quick. Gotta find it. Here we go. I can clear that condition by running from danger or difficulty. Oh, that's afraid. Sorry. I can clear the angry condition by breaking something important or lashing out at a friend. So when we're playing a game of role-playing game, we're sitting around with a bunch of people, friends, or at least friendly strangers. When my character goes and does something horribly stupid, like breaking something important, everyone at the table kind of goes, yeah, of course he's doing that. That's what he needs to do in order to clear his angry condition. He's not just being a troll. He's not just being a jerk. The mechanics of the game require that they break something important in order to clear the angry condition. It'd be like playing Pathfinder 2 if the druid or the cleric had an anathema and their character was incapable of doing something. And like the party's like, okay, hey, we need to go do that thing. And the cleric's like, I won't do it. It is against my, like, the players aren't going to give that person a hard time. They're not going to say, come on, man, you're just being difficult. Everyone's going to understand that, like, oh no, that's the mechanics of the game. Like, because if it wasn't the mechanics of the game, you'd be like, no, my character would never do that. And everyone would be like, what are you talking about? You did that a couple of times, like 3 sessions ago when it was convenient. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, I guess you're kind of right. I guess I could kind of do it. No, I'm going to make a stand this time and be really kind of a pain in the ass. And everybody else is going to roll their eyes and be like, oh my God, this guy's being so difficult. Why is she doing this? It's like, just so she could role play, and it's just causing us problems, right? It would be kind of mechanical role playing, and having mechanics tied to role playing kind of excuses the behavior. And that is kind of a nice reason, because again, it kind of gives you an out. You don't have to worry about being a jerk, because you know the characters are just gonna say, oh yeah, right, they're clearing their angry condition. They're not just being a troll. They're not trying to make the game difficult for the rest of us. They're playing the game the way that it is meant to be played. Frank, how do you move towards role or freedom? Who decides? Frank, we'd have to get into the mechanics of Avatar, but essentially, Frank, there are mechanics in the game that your character can take, or there are moves that NPCs will use against you that can shift you towards either end. It is actually part of the game. You don't just decide to move towards freedom or role. It happens mechanically in the game. It's like hit points in D&D. You can't just decide, I have less hit points, I have more hit points. Your balance in Avatar is reduced and raised by various mechanics in the game. Like you can heal and shift yourself towards the middle, which is actually called balance, or things can push you away from the middle towards one of the extremes, and that, is taking your character out of balance. Let's see here. Isaiah, hot take. Role-playing is not easy, and the system is a tool to help you collectively tell a story. Yes, I do agree that the system is a tool to help you collectively tell a story. And I think that the you collective, meaning not just you, but like everybody at the table, is very true. It's not about me telling my story. It's about us telling a story, right? It's not me telling my story. It's us telling a story, our story, the story. And I agree with you. Role-playing is not easy. I think people undersell it. I think it is tough. Everyone's like, oh, everyone can play D&D. Everyone can play Pathfinder 2. It's so easy to be a GM. I don't think so. I don't think so. It's easy to do. It's not easy to do well. I think we can all agree to that. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody from picking up the GM screen or even playing D&D. I'm just saying, try to be better. Just always be looking for ways to improve. Always watch shows like, Night's the Last Call. Go watch, I don't know, Rules Lawyer or Nonat or Professor Dungeon Master or whoever is out there. Learn from Matt Colville. Learn from people who are different from you, and try to start listening to all sorts of different takes and start assessing and building a collective knowledge within you. I think that is the best way to do it. GM Scott coming back here, rocking that sexy red loyalty badge. Thank you, GM Scott. Coming up on 1 year, GM Scott, of loyalty for supporting the adventure. I think games with mechanics for personality or role play, like Avatar, for example, might help encourage players to begin thinking about the character instead of just putting themselves in its place. And GM Scott, I agree completely. I mean, I completely agree with you. But do you also feel that some people may feel like the whole point of a role-playing game is getting to do whatever you want? I think that a lot of people have a problem with this idea that a role-playing game's mechanics might somehow limit what your character can do. This is going back even to the 80s, GM Scott, and the 90s, right? The classic players, writing in about their bad GM, their bad DM saying, well, I wanted my character to go into town and start killing people, but the DM said, no, I couldn't do that. He said, your character wouldn't do that. And I was like, that's so stupid. I'm my character. I should be able to do whatever I want to do with my character. Now, obviously, these people are just bad players. I mean, the real problem, it's not the game's fault. These are just horrible people. But there is some sort of logic in what they are saying, right? Which is, for a lot of people, the reason they enjoy role-playing games is this idea of, just basically beaming their mind into this virtual avatar in this fantasy world and being able to do whatever they want. And nothing could tell me how to feel. Nothing could tell me how to think. Nothing could tell me how to act. I can just do whatever I want to. And yes, like, we accept certain physical realities. Like if my character is bound with rope, or my character is paralyzed by a basilisk, or petrified by a basilisk, or paralyzed by a ghoul, yeah, now I can't do things. But that's because my avatar, the actual being in the game, has been constrained or controlled or whatever. But there's no mechanic in the game that controls the way that I play it. There's no mechanic that controls the way that I want to do things. There's some, for some people, that is a really important thing that they really hold on to. And they really, really, really have this knee-jerk vomit reaction to the idea of the game telling them what they can and cannot do.
Kragen tipped
Hey,
$5.
Kragen!
That's probably too deep for most games. Playing a character and having it do whatever you want, but then having to consider who that person is when separated from yourself.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I mean, you're probably right. I mean, you are probably right. So thank you for the tip, but I agree with you. I mean, I definitely, that is a very valid point. And I mean, again, I don't know that I have an exact, solution. I mean, I certainly think about these games a lot deeper than most people. I just think that, I think it's more fun. I don't know. Again, I just think that, isn't that the point of the role-playing game? Role-playing game. It's to be someone else. It's to think differently. It's to act differently. And I have talked about this on this channel before. I don't even know where I put it. Oh, I think it's in the other room because I was reading it. But like playing games like Monster Hearts, which is a game that was written by a queer person and uses the idea of teenage supernatural monsters as a metaphor for having thoughts and feelings and physical reactions that you are not in control of, and feeling betrayed by your own body. So they wrote this RPG as a way of using monsters and teenagers as a metaphor, in a certain sense, for the insecurity that we all feel as teenagers, and to a certain extent, the insecurity that a lot of queer people feel. I am a cis hetero individual who had a great time in high school. That game allowed me, to a smallest degree, to understand that position, that world, that viewpoint a little bit better. It doesn't make me a great person. It just says that it just makes me a little bit more open-minded and a little bit more understanding. because I want to be, and I want to understand, and I want to understand different ways of thinking, and I want to understand different ways of viewing the world. And here comes this game. We know that games can teach. We know that games can teach. We do it with our children, right? Why are we playing Hi-Ho, Cherry-Ho? It's to teach them how to count, right? So many games are used as a way to teach. They're used as a way to grow. And I think role-playing games could be the same way. And I wonder if sometimes if by not playing into that, you are ignoring, you're leaving that behind, and you're sort of leaving a lot of value on the table. And I mean, I get it. I don't know how to describe it, but like, I guess I don't want every game session to be this very, intense, dramatic, life-altering, perspective-minded thing. Of course I don't. I mean, sometimes we want to have fun. Sometimes I want to go to the movie that's going to make me think and keep me up at night and have me questioning my beliefs and thinking about what would I have done in that situation, and could I have done the same thing? Right? All these things would have been amazing. But sometimes I just want to go see a Marvel movie and just see things get blown up real good. I mean, there's a time and a place, and I think certainly what Isaiah is saying here is very true. That's a great example of choosing the system that supports the story you want to tell or experience rather than tell. Yes, I'm not going to pick a game like Monster Hearts in order to do kick-ass dungeon crawling combat. That's not what that game system is for. Glenn says it's role-playing versus role-playing. Now, Glenn, thank you for the super chat. I will say that I do think that role-playing gets unnecessary, and by the way, role-playing, R-O-L-L playing, gets unnecessary bad vibes. Like I just said, sometimes I want to kick ass and take names. And that's where role-playing is great. But what's interesting, Glenn, is that the games that I was talking about, games like Powered by the Apocalypse, games like Monster Hearts, which I was just describing with the teen supernatural queer vampire romance, games like Avatar Legends. These games are kind of both, Glenn. They're role-playing and role-playing. We're not just making it up. We're not just acting. We're playing the game. These things are affecting dice. We are rolling dice, and they are making a difference. And the way that we are playing our characters, the way that we are expressing our characters, has a mechanical effect on those dice rolls. And so in a way, Glenn, there is kind of a way to have your cake and eat it too. There's a way for it to be not role-playing versus role-playing. There's a way for it to be role-playing and role-playing. And I like dice. But I also like the challenges that come with trying to figure out who a person is and bring them to life in a fun way that tells a story and is unexpected and surprising for everyone, including myself, and advances, things in that are in motion in our game world. And I get to respond to the way that other characters react, or the way that the world reacts, or the way that NPCs react. And there's this fun back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Purple GM coming in with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Purple Gem. Thank you also for taking over that hype boss, Purple Gem. We had a massive anonymous tip. I think I did get taken out here the last couple of tips, but we did have a massive anonymous tip, and I think you all have chipped that down slowly over the last an hour or so. And so I want to say a big thanks, shout out to that anonymous tip from last time. But thank you all for being so super generous tonight, especially since we don't have a tip goal. So I appreciate it. Purple GM says, Ready Player One vibes there. Oh, okay. What I was talking about beaming your mind into an avatar. Yeah, totally. In fact, actually, Purple GM, what I was thinking about is there's a style of novel, which is kind of popular amongst some people in a Patreon, which is called oh, Christ. What is it called? It's called a literary RPG, something. Yes, Kevin got it right. Lit RPG, where it's a novel which is written where like the person is in the game. Like it's like you in real life, but like you see your hit point bar over, like you have a heads up display, and like you're a real person, but in a video game. It's very weird for me, and it's not something that I would ever be interested in, but it is very popular. Like, apparently, I'd never heard of the genre until I started this YouTube channel and I started meeting people through our Patreon, and some people are really, really into this. Anyways, Ready Player One, about beaming your mind into an avatar. I think your freedom was choosing to be there and take on that role. If you aren't ultimately happy, then no one is forcing you to stay there. Yeah, no, I agree, Purple GM, but like, I suppose it comes down to Purple. What do you think? We talked about this before when we talked about the role of a person at the gaming table, and the idea of a character being, or I should say, the player. Is your player character a pawn, like as in like a game board piece? Right? Are they a pawn or a knight or a rook or, a tank in Axis and Allies or in Risk? Are they just a pawn? Are they just something that you are moving around the game board, which in this case might be your fantasy world? And they're doing whatever you tell them to do because you're in control. You're just moving them. Or are you more like an actor? Are you trying to portray, right? An actor is a real life person. They have their own personality. They have their own thoughts. They have their own opinions. They have their own whatever. But they take on a role. Robert Downey Jr. takes on the role of Tony Stark as Iron Man. And he has to play it to a certain way. There are some actors who we know basically play the same character in every one of their roles. There are other actors who play a crazy amount of different roles. And it's almost like startling how different they are. And I think part of the reason, now some people make a lot of money doing this, but there's also a lot of people that just do it for fun. They do it in high school. They do it in community theater. I think there's fun that comes with being challenged by the role, by saying the way that this character is being portrayed or played right now is very different from the way that I would want to play it or the way that I would portray it.
Lollipop Candy tip $10. Tipping without tip goals is FBT.
That actually is true. Tipping without a tip goal is totally FPT. That is 100% true. That is 100% true. I appreciate it. And look, I think FPT is important. Okay. We call it fluffy bullshit time because I want to make sure it's called what it is. I don't want to play a game of TTRPGs where we are just yelling mechanics back and forth at each other, right? I attack, I move and attack. I counter with a mean comment. I respond with stoicism and respond with another mean comment back at you. I ignore your mean comment and I am going to appeal to a higher authority. Well, because you've appealed to a higher authority, my character will become insecure. Okay, great. Like, yeah, we're playing a role-playing game. We're engaging the mechanics. In the latter example, we were even doing things involving a dialogue, but that is dry and vab and boring, right? We do want some FBT there. But anyways, so we have Purple GM. I think that if we always just do whatever makes us happy and we never challenge ourselves, and there's not you said that no one's forcing you to stay there, but maybe it's kind of a good thing if we are forced to stay there a little bit and we're forced to sort of struggle. We're forced to grow. We're forced to change and to learn and to adapt. Let's see. Okay, everyone coming in here with the Lit RPG. Kevin says, I love Lit RPG. I'd love to make a Heartbreaker TTRPG game based on one of those systems. Oh, Kevin, I bet you, if you could do it well, Kevin, I bet you it actually would do really well. Let's see. Let's see. We're talking about animes, which is always fantastic. Great. I love it when the chat starts talking about animes. It's all right, you people. You can have your chats. That's why there's an anime channel on Knights of the Last Call Discord. Not for me, though. For you. Jason says, but does it mean more because there is no goal? Maybe, Jason. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. Theodore says, what I want from role-playing games is memorable, shared, emotional experiences, including negative emotions. Now, Theodore, you and I are talking. We're on the same page because that is definitely what I want as well. I don't want it every time. I got to admit, I don't want it every week. I don't want it week after week after week after week. I don't want it to always just be a nonstop depression fest. But I like making difficult choices. And I'll be honest with you, Theodore, as a GM, what I love the most is giving player characters difficult choices, things that they have to describe. And in fact, Theodore, one of my favorite examples, spoilers, I guess, for movies that are 20, 30 years old. One of my favorite examples between what I consider to be a mature and engrossing film versus popcorn candy action flick film is comparing Batman the Dark Knight, the one with Heath Ledger as Joker, versus Batman Forever, which starred Val Kilmer as Batman and Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Now, in both these films, at the end, near the climax, the villain has kidnapped two of Batman's favorite people. In Batman Dark Knight, he has captured Maggie Gyllenhaal character, Rachel, and Harvey Dent. And he's put them at opposite end of the town, and he tells them, I'm going to blow one of them up. You can only save one of them. Who are you going to save, right? This is the classic hero's dilemma, right? Do you save the woman you love, or do you do the quote unquote right thing? And of course, in the movie, Joker plays an extra fuck on him because he doesn't even lie. He lies to him. So the one that he chooses is going to be the one that he doesn't save anyways, but he doesn't know that. And Batman has to make a choice, and he makes a tough choice. And then Batman, I'm going to give my life for Gotham. I don't care about anything. Like, I'm here for the city. I'll die for the city. That's all that matters to me. Suddenly shows the crack in his armor. And he chooses to go after Rachel, which of course isn't Rachel. And so Rachel dies. Anyways, in Batman Forever, which is the, Val Kilmer, 90s, very kind of jokey, more comic booky version of the story. At the end of the thing, Robin and Bruce Wayne's, which is like Batman's protege, and then Bruce Wayne's love interest are both suspended, and he's going to drop them at the same time, and you can only save one of them. And he goes, "Oh, who are you? Are you Batman? Are you Batman and you're going to save Robin, or are you Bruce Wayne and you're going to save the woman you love?" And he's like, that's the, whatever, like, you got to pick. And he drops both of them. And in the comic book, movie, he jumps down, he saves both of them. He jumps down after the one, shoots his Batarang gun, it bounces off of 5 things, shoots down the other one, grabs the woman by the ankle, and they're both saved. The reason I bring this all up is because sometimes when we play games, we want to play Batman Forever, and sometimes when we play games, we want to play Batman the Dark Knight. We don't always want to be sitting there like, choose between your love and doing what is right. Oh, you chose your love. Well, guess what? It wasn't your love. It was doing what's right. And your love, the one that you chose, she's dead now. Oh, suffer in pain for all time. Right? Like, we don't always want that. Sometimes sometimes the fun of being a hero is you get to do both, because in real life, right? And this gets to another issue about role-playing games. In real life, we have to make shitty decisions every day, right? Do I go to college, or do I acquire infinite debt? Do I keep renting, or do I take the risk of buying a house and getting priced in at an absurd mortgage interest rate? Do I stay in this unhealthy relationship, or do I leave and now my children are being raised by divorced parents, right? We are forced to make these horrible decisions every single day. Part of the reason that we play role-playing games or play games in general is escapism, right? Like, I just had a horrible, again, I've used this example before. We were playing Powered by the Apocalypse game, Scum and Villainy. And, there was some, it wasn't even that serious, to be honest with you. It was more like a Fast and the Furious Star Wars knockoff, the way we were playing the game. They were basically intergalactic racers who were trying to, maneuver through a world of underground criminal gangs and power players as they tried to soup up their ship to be able to win this big ultimate galactic wide race. But, Scum and Villainy is a game system, and the game system is designed to put some stress on your characters. And my players came to me at the end of the one session, or the beginning of one session, and said, "Derek, we can't play this game anymore. work is tough. My wife is really being real pain to me this week. I need to escape. The last thing I want to do right now is make tough, gut-wrenching decisions, man. I just kind of want to kick in the door and kill everything and take all their gold. Ideally, they're evil, and I don't have to deal with the moral consequences of this. I can just kill them, feel good about it, and then take all their gold and feel good about it. And that's all I really want. I want that sort of catharsis. Anyways, so, that's kind of where I struggle. I don't really have a great answer. I mean, as oftentimes with these cases, with these streams, I don't have a great answer. All I can say is that I think that tabletop role-playing games push you in a positive direction when they enforce or encourage or even punish certain types of character behavior. And I do think it is a more compelling game when what your character thinks and feels and expresses has a real mechanical answer. It has a real mechanical effect on the game. But all that being said, I also understand that there is a big part of this game that is about that freedom and that autonomy, about that ability to sort of, Ready Player One, lit RPG, beam into a character and not have to worry about anything and be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want to. No rules, no limits, no restrictions, and just do whatever you want to do in the moment that says that. That's very freeing. That's very powerful. And ultimately, the games are supposed to be enjoyable and fun. Now, people use that excuse, by the way, all the time for really shitty decisions. Like, there's a lot of movies out there that are really amazing, fantastic, spectacular movies that are paradigms of the film. And they're not fun. They're not, Schindler's List is probably one of the greatest movies of all time that I've seen. That movie is not fun. So when people use the expression like, well, whatever, as long as it's fun, that's the most important thing that matters. That's where it's kind of like, Jackal Torn Moon says, what are the differences between the Discord roles based on your Patreon membership level? Jackal, well, we have 4 tiers. We have a Squire tier, which is our lowest tier. That just gets you access to Discord. It gets you access to all of our channels. That you can hang out and you can chat and you can have fun, you can have talk. Our Knight level, which is just a few bucks above that, not only gives it access to our Discord, but it also gives you access to all of our Patreon exclusive posts, bonus footage, behind the scenes, extra videos. All total, I think there's about 40 or 50 videos that we have in our library of extra stuff that is out there. Our Champion tier, not only do they get access to all the same, but they also get access to when we release PDFs. Sometimes we release bonus content documents. We have a Battle Cry magazine that we release on occasion. New issues coming out here soon-ish. And then eventually when our Northern Reaches game is active, you have to be a champion to be in our Northern Reaches game, which is our big, huge mega game. And then lastly, our hero tier is really just about, showing your love and support for the channel. I mean, you get a couple of fringe benefits. Heroes can sometimes join us on stream. They get to have their cameras on when we do our big group live chats. They get some fringe benefits, but for the most part, heroes are just there to be like, hey, we really want to support you and we love what you guys do. Some of that might be changing. We're going to introduce some additional benefits for our higher tier patrons here soon, but that's the basic breakdown of it. Let's see here. Fluffy bullshit time yields IRL EXP. Maybe. Yeah, and again, Craig, and I agree with you here. You can be okay playing your typecast character every time, but it can also be great to branch out in unexplored territories. I agree. I think that's totally reasonable. The game you choose to play really sets the tone for that expectation. Now, Kragan, that's kind of a different can of worms, because I agree with you, Kragan. I agree with you. And this is where, again, I don't want to seem like I'm gatekeeping or anything like that. But this is why when I look at the way that people play 5th edition D&D or even Pathfinder 2, I say, what the hell are you people doing? Why are you playing a heroic fantasy adventuring game which has 850 different weapons and 250 different suits of armor and just a million, like, this game is clearly built around and has mechanics supporting all of this stuff that, but you guys want to, what, play the game by like talking in the marketplace? Maybe that game, that game doesn't seem like that's the best game to play. I don't know what to say. Like if I wanted to play a game of mystery and investigation, I'd play Clue. I wouldn't play Monopoly. So I agree with you, Kragan, but not everybody agrees with me. Some people want to use the D20 engine for everything. In fact, Matt Colville just did a video. We've been following his Patreon for a while because we've been interested in his game design, and he finally did a video announcing that he was designing a role-playing game, which if you've been following as a member of the Patreon, like we've known that for a while. But he said in it, which I appreciate, he said, look, our game is a fantasy adventuring game. It's going to be mostly about heroic fighting, combat, kicking ass, and maybe a couple other things. And that's what our game's going to focus on. And we're not trying to be anything else other than that. And he says this, nor are we trying to be a game that tries to be a little bit of everything, but it somehow ends up being kind of bad at everything. And I was like, damn, that is a shots fired on the D20 megalith, if there ever was one. Because definitely, I will say this, D20 does try to be a little bit of everything. And it succeeds in certain areas, but man, it falls short in a bunch of other areas. Purple GM says, as someone who takes the trope role of the heart in the parties, I've been in a game where the party is more psychotic than usual, and it's hard to be a Lancer, and I definitely feel challenged. I don't know if are you making Spire and Heart references there, or are you making Lancer references? I'm not sure. I don't know those games well enough yet to really be able to respond to that. Isaiah, semi-related. I love the movie Suicide Kings. It was amazing. I watched it close to 20 years ago now, and I think maybe I'll watch it 6 times soon. All right, great. That's fantastic. Because I don't need that kind of depression in my life often. Yes, there you go. Jack, thanks for it. Yeah, we're really excited for Northern Reaches startup as well. Jackal, a lot of things with Knights of Last Call. There's several of us. It's none of our full-time jobs. I try to get out here twice a week, a minimum. Sometimes I do 3 times a week. We try to be on our Discord pretty much 24/7. To be honest with you, between you and me, Jackal, I spend too much time on my own Discord. It is interfering with certain aspects of my life. But sometimes real life kicks up, and especially for me, especially for my friend Aaron, who helps me run the channel and really manages a lot of the Northern Reaches stuff. We just our company, he and I both work for the same real world company. Basically, it's sort of like it got like a whole new senior leadership, and it's basically restarting the company from the ground up. So he's been really super busy. He's much more important at our company than I am. And delays happen. I mean, I don't, I wish we were full time. I wish we could do this, 7 days a week and, 6 days a week and go live stream, 3, 4, 5 times a week, every week. And just make this our full-time job. That would be amazing. Awesome. Incredible. I don't know that anybody can really do that, in this environment anymore. Maybe there's a couple of people who do it for 5th edition D&D, but anyways, long story short, yes, we are excited to get Northern Reaches startup as well. We would have loved for it to launch, probably starting, tomorrow. But we get it done when we get it done. That is unfortunately the way it is. I'm but a lowly squire, but Flint, we love you all the same. Listen, it is, look, I love our heroes, the $25. I try to really go out of my way to say thank you so much, for everybody who's willing to pay that amount of money each month. It's a tremendous, generous donation. But the difference of someone who, most people watch channels, they like people, they give them $0 a month. So to even give a channel or a Patreon like ours $3 or $5 a month is such a huge step up. I consider it to be a really big sign of support. Even, obviously, again, I really respect our champions and our heroes for giving us this extra money, but even someone who's willing to give us $3 or $5 a month is a big deal. Let's see. Kevin said, I liked his Here's Our New RPG Game video. Kevin, I liked it too. I like about 80 to 90% of what Matt makes his videos about. I don't always agree with him about a lot of things. I think he's a little bit too narrative, and I think he has too much of an authorial background that he has too much control over what he wants to happen in his games. I'm like a little bit more loosey-goosey. I don't like some of his messaging about plots and stories. But I do like his philosophy along the way that they're designing their game a lot, and I'm definitely eager to keep reading his articles as they produce them. Hart and Lancer are roles in the 5-member band trope in the movies. Got it. TV tropes. Got it. Okay, I don't know those tropes. Interesting. They're TV tropes making up reductionist archetypes because they think Campbell is the pinnacle of scholarship. Hey, listen, I had to read Hero of 1,000 Masks or whatever the hell it was called, Hero of 1,000 Faces. I had to read that my freshman year of high school as well. Okay. Flint says I might have to increase my pledge to jump into the Northern Reaches actions. Flint, that would definitely be a great time to do it. We had a couple of patrons who reduced their Patreon pledge when the season 1 ended, because they said, hey, listen, this is a big expense for me. Money's tight. God knows everything is super expensive. God knows wages haven't been going up. So I have no problem with people, dialing back their Patreon membership and then taking it up when they want to, show their support and get a little bit of extra action for it. Again, we have a lot of patrons who continue to give us amazing support and they don't change it at all. God bless to them. They definitely keep the lights on. But, for everybody else, I say, listen, you do what is right for you, for your family, your situation, your budget, because I'm never going to tell anybody how they should spend their money. Right. I know Matt Colville's an author. I'm saying I think he's biased by that. But yeah. So good times, fun stuff. Again, I know tonight was a little bit more loosey-goosey philosophical than some of our, here is all the archetypes and we are going to rank them. But Jason says, in my opinion, the characters in the Leverage are the best examples of 5-man band. Jason, I saw a fantastic, I think it was on Pathfinder 2 subreddit. Someone had the picture of the 5 characters from the Reddit, or the 5 characters from the Leverage TV show. And they they showed how all 5 of them were different archetypes of Pathfinder 2 rogues. So in Pathfinder 2, there are 5 rackets that you can have for a rogue, right? There's the Eldritch Trickster, the Mastermind, the Ruffian, the Scoundrel, and the Thief. And they were basically like the 5 characters from Leverage. Basically, each one basically perfectly represents one of those 5 archetypes. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. That is totally true. And so that was pretty good. I like that a lot. Yeah. It was on Reddit. Yeah, I thought it was on the Pathfinder 2 subreddit. I was actually just looking for it right now, but I couldn't find it quick and super easy. But let me see if I can find it here. I didn't try to do something. Oh. It got taken down because it wasn't educational. Oh my God. All right. Well, that's stupid. That's awesome. That's actually funny and it's good and that's a meme. Isaiah says, I am here for it. Both is good. Yeah, Isaiah. Look, I agree. I mean, part of Knights of Last Call is about deep mechanical analysis. And it's about making critiques of products, of classes, of systems, of digging deep and figuring out, do these games even work? The mechanics of a game matter. That's what makes a game is the mechanics. So we do like to talk about those things. I'm a gamer. I'm a data scientist by trade. I love board games. I used to play Magic the Gathering attempted to play it professionally, so played it pretty competitively. I like games and I like, fidgeting with them. But I also like role-playing games. They're my favorite type of game. And that means that sometimes we need to go a little bit deeper. We do need to talk about the philosophy of it. We need to, yeah, exactly, Flint. We need to chill. We need to get into the deep, deep perspectives. Kevin says, I posted the link, but I think the auto mod deleted it. Yeah, the auto mod would have deleted it. It doesn't allow posting links. Sorry, Kevin. But yeah, anyways, it's all good stuff. So yeah. Well, I think we're going to start wrapping that up here. I know we're going a little bit late here. And we started a little bit late, so I appreciate everybody hanging out with me tonight. Yeah, let me know in the comments below if you didn't get a chance to join us in the chat. What are your thoughts about role-playing mechanics, personality mechanics in your role-playing game? Do you think that they belong? Do you think that alignment or traits or personality or whatever, the things that we talked about with Avatar, do you think that these things help push the role-playing game into a better place? Do you think that they push into a game into something more unique? Something that is clearly not a board game, that is clearly not just a miniatures combat game. It's clearly more than a game of Warhammer 40K or Age of Sigmar. It's clearly more than a game of Frosthaven or Gloomhaven. There's something there that makes it transformative, that makes it unique. I like to think that there is. So my thought process here is, I understand that it's probably not for every game, and it's not for every session, and it's certainly not for every group. But I do think that these mechanics do matter, and I think that they can influence the game. And I will say that starting back in 1979 with first edition AD&D, Gary Gygax included as a penalty forcing you to play your alignment. It was, you wrote it down. Now, you get to wrote it down. That is your decision as a player. But once you wrote down that your character was neutral good or chaotic neutral or lawful evil, the onus was on you as the player to make sure that your character's behavior was consistent with their personality. And if it wasn't, the GM would penalize you and would punish you by, making you lose a level. And that mechanical impetus left the game as we went into 3rd edition and into 4th edition. And it came back a little bit in 5th edition D&D, but not as a stick, but as a carrot in the form of ideals, flaws, and bonds, as a way to say, hey, if you play your character in such a way, then you're going to be rewarded with this meta currency called inspiration. And it exists. There's no simulationism to that. It's not like receiving a bless spell. It's a reward for playing the game well. And playing your character correctly. But apparently that was very unpopular, which is very surprising to me because, again, Critical Role and, all these things are so popular nowadays. It's kind of crazy to me. I think that would be a lot more interesting to watch, the Critical Rollers play a game like Monster Hearts or Avatar Legends or Masks or, God, nearly anything other than 5th edition D&D, because I'm like, that game, the 5th edition game mechanics seem completely opposed to the way that they are trying to play the game and they're trying to interact with and they're trying to have fun with it. So it's very strange to me. People are talking about the Book of we're not going to talk about the 3.5 Book of Exalted Deeds, though. What is there to talk about the Book of Exalted Deeds? I thought it was a stupid, cheesy book that really didn't do anything. To be fair, I thought the Book of Vile Darkness was also stupid. There we go. There's the Book of Exalted Deeds. Looking pretty good shape considering I barely ever used it. You're saying it's the biggest carrot ever. You're so good. You're good. You're good. You're so good. But yeah, like I said, we've the Book of Exalted Cheese. Personality mechanics are discriminatory against members of the FBI. I don't know that I understood that joke, but maybe I'm just not very smart. I don't know. Brief thoughts on Starfinder Enhanced. I assume you don't really care about it. I don't play Starfinder, so I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. Number one, I think we all thought this was probably long overdue. I think as soon as Pathfinder 2 came out, I always felt like the number one thing that people were saying was, when can we get 3-action economy in Starfinder? What sucks that we're stuck playing the crap old version of Starfinder. So I'm surprised that it took them this long to do it. But it's weird to me that they're not just doing Starfinder 2nd edition. Like, I don't understand why they're doing it as a, you know, I don't understand why they're doing it as an update, an enhanced. I mean, maybe it's so that they can get it out to date because they want to get it out this year. But it says, reading from their, from their press release, totally revised fundamentals, like new core classes and starship combat to brand new systems for expanding the way you play. Like, this doesn't just sound like a 3.5e update. It really sounds like it's like a whole new thing. So I don't know. I mean, the obvious comparisons to this are to Pathfinder Unchained, but this sounds like it's more, I don't know, we'll see. Yeah, bit polygon. Yeah, the way that Pathfinder Unchained was a test for Pathfinder 2nd edition rules. So we'll see. I don't know. I was trying to build the Mandalorian in Pathfinder 2, and you would think maybe a ranger or gunslinger, but I think he may be a paladin. Well, I think you got to go gunslinger, bro. I think you got to go gunslinger or someone. You might take some archetype feats. But it got to be a gunslinger, right? Let's see. Yeah, it's weird to me that it's not Starfinder 2nd edition. Starfinder 2nd edition requires more baking. It is a weird development decision. Certain systems are getting completely rehauled from the sounds of it. Yeah, so it sounds like it's a lot more than just what Unchained did, but we'll see. Calling it enhanced instead of edition supposedly markets better. You know what, Kraken? You're probably right, and as sad as that is actually, I could totally see why that's true. It bothers me that it's true, Kraken, but I can see why it is true. That's right. Magic the Gathering did the same thing. It was no longer 10th edition, 11th edition. It was just Magic 2022. Magic 2023. Thoughts on Magic the Gathering, Lord of the Rings, right quick. You see, they found sheets of the cards from a dump of dogs. Okay, they were foil uncut sheets. I don't know. I mean, the card looks a little boring. I mean, it's weird. They're doing this new thing now with, like, they're starting to do this with the March of the Machines with multiple legends on all the one card. So the only card I saw, by the way, Purple GM was Aragorn and Arwen married card. But somebody was saying that, like, from the way that it was designed and the power level, it's probably from like a pre-con deck. I don't know. All I'll say about this Purple GM is I'm really excited about Lord of the Rings. I got to admit, I think the expanded universes thing is stupid. Universes Beyond thing is stupid. I think Magic is being dragged over the bloody shards of what was once a good game. They still come out with some amazing sets from time to time, but I'm a Lord of the Rings fanboy. I think it'd be so cool to play Lord of the Rings in Magic the Gathering format. I kind of don't care I don't kind of care. Now, what I do care, Purple GM, is I do like to draft. That's the way I mostly play Magic the Gathering these days. I have a group of guys that go up to the card shop every Friday. They team draft, 3v3 team draft. Winning team keeps all the cards. Losing team pays for all the cards. And so it's pretty competitive. It's kind of cutthroat, and I love it. I've heard rumors that these packs are going to be outrageously expensive. So that it disappoints me because that means that it's going to be difficult to draft with them. We'll see. Money drafts are fun, just not when your friends are professional Magic players. Well, Kevin, three of the people you regularly play Magic with have been on the Pro Tour multiple times. So I don't know that they were ever, I don't think they would ever call themselves professional Magic players. but they've been on the Pro Tour a bunch of times. They definitely have a bunch of GP top 8s. So they're pretty good. Purple says, if we ever have a night con, we are totally drafting. Oh, there will be Magic the Gathering played at night con. Your friend's former roommates, LSV. Oh, that's very cool. Wow, I'm a big fan of LSV, and I love his podcast. I love him. I love Marshall. Good times. That's pretty cool. That's pretty sweet. Yeah. I imagine team drafting with LSV would be pretty rough, but our teams are always random, Kevin. So we don't let people pick teams. So sometimes the best players all get put on one team. Sometimes it's spread out. So you get to gamble. It's a lot of fun. We always have fun with it. So we have fun with the money drafts. Lord of the Rings needs a Total War title and has needed one forever. Oh yeah, wow, Kragan, that totally is so true. I mean, would it be too much like Total War Warhammer? Maybe. But I don't care. It totally needs that. It does totally need that. It does totally need that. I would play the ever-lifting shit out of that. In fact, actually, Immortal Empires just came out for Total War 3. I avoided buying Total War Warhammer 3 because I only like to play the big mega campaign. I don't like to play the story campaigns. I hate stories. I only want to play like there is no plot. It's just a world. People are being dicks. Go conquer everything until you win or the game is over or you get bored. They just came out with it, I think, in the last couple of weeks, the one for Total War Warhammer 3, and I need to pick it up, and I'm afraid to because that means I'm going to spend at least 100, 200 hours playing Total War. It'll suck me in. Total War Warhammer. Maybe you'll rub shoulders during Eldamon card play testing. Something tells me that would no. Does anyone play Legend of the Five Rings card game? Jason, do you mean the one that is defunct? The living card game from Fantasy Flight Games that they ended? If so, I tried to get into it, but I actually own like almost all of the cards for it, Jason, because I got them at a pretty good discount, but it's a cool game. I love Legend of the Five Rings. I actually bought a bunch of the starter decks, Jason, because I wanted the Void, Fire, Earth, Air, and Water tokens so that I could use them when we play the role-playing game. Yeah, the RTS is... Oh, Battle for Middle-earth. There are also mods for Total War for Lord of the Rings. Okay. I'm not a mod guy. I don't like hacking my games. It's just because I'm not a video game master player type person, and mods always make me feel like, oh, it's just going to break the game. Yeah, Medieval 2 getting pretty dated. Got it. Legend of the Five Rings. Well, Isaiah, they do have Shogun, right? Shogun and Shogun 2, which are medieval not fantasy samurai, but it's medieval Japan. So there is that. Anyways, we got onto a bunch of video game tangents here, but those are the answers to that. We'll be back. It's 10 o'clock now, so that's 2 hours for us, so we will wrap it up. We'll be back Thursday. We are in the final stretch, last couple of sessions, I think, of archetypes. And we are eager. I am eager. We are all eager. Can we all admit that? We are all eager to be done with the archetype tier list ranking and to be able to put it behind us and say, okay, we did that. We did that together. You and me and all of us, we did it together, and we are moving on to greener pastures. Not touching that with a 10-foot collapsible bamboo pole. What about the OG L5R game back when it was a CCG by AG? Didn't play it at all, Jason, but I do remember going to Gen Con and Origins and hearing the insane crowds for people when that game was playing and being like, what is going on with that game? I was like jealous, but also afraid, because I was like, oh my God, these people take this game way too seriously. But now I look back and I think, it's pretty awesome. No. Isaiah, I get what you're saying, but that's not really because like Legend of the Five Rings doesn't have like monsters or anything like that. It just has samurai. I mean, it does have Shugenja, but I mean, it's fine. I really enjoy your archetype ranking. Well, I appreciate it. I mean, we do it. people like to watch it. If people get value out of it, I think that's fine. It's just, it gets a little tedious to watch, definitely gets a little tedious to do, but you all make it much more enjoyable. And of course, incredible support from people tipping, and super chatting and all that other stuff makes it so that it's like, yeah, okay, hey, like people are appreciating us. They're showing their support. This is worth me spending a few hours, of my evening, at home, to do. So all good stuff. Gotta rank zebra round. Yes, and then of course, I almost forgot, London. We do at the end have to create the zebra wrangler archetype, which will be I'm sure a hoot. Maybe we'll get some patrons on for that. AEG control the L5R flanker. Well, Jason, I really enjoy Legend of the Five Rings 5th edition, which was produced by Fantasy Flight Games. So there's part of me that goes, I kind of like Fantasy Flight Games owning the game, but I'll make a series ranking type extras called Poor Finder, and it's nothing but terrible advice. Well, Purple GM, some people would say that is my instance, but as I always say, I don't care if you listen to me. I don't. What I do want you to do is think for yourself. I want you to have opinions, but I want you to know why you have that opinion. I want you to understand your biases. I want you to understand how your experiences have shaped your perceptions. And I want you to be able to articulate to other people why you think your opinion works for you and your table and your group, or maybe potentially from other people. Because if you cannot articulate it and you don't know why you think a certain way, then we're not really communicating, right? You're just talking at me. And I don't want to have you talk at me. I want us to talk to each other. So that's the only thing I ever ask. Again, yes, you're free to be as wrong as you want to be, as long as you understand why. Yes, that is very true. Thank you for sharing your time. Thank you for sharing your time, Flint. Appreciate you having you here and in the Patreon. Thanks to all of our patrons. Thanks to our people who tipped and supported us tonight. Appreciate everybody for coming out here tonight. And hopefully we'll see you Thursday when we start tackling the archetypes again as we wrap up. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for me. I will see you next time on Thursday when we will be back with more Knights of Last Call. Peace, everybody. Enjoy it.
I need you more.
You